Babysitters of Reddit. What were the weirdest rules parents asked you to follow? Story 1. The 3-year-old daughter had to watch this VHS tape of a live Fleetwood Mac concert before bed. I was like, okay, cute. That's adorable. 3-year-olds love the weirdest things. She's so quirky and this will be fun. But she didn't love it. She always wanted to watch Land Before Time instead. But it was always on the note left for me. Like, pager number, pediatrician. Chicken soup for dinner is in fridge and watch Fleetwood Mac at 630 before, but obviously the family eventually found out. I wasn't making her watch it, as I had no reason to believe it was a secret. They were clearly upset by this, and I was never called back to babysit. Story 2. I had to put the kids to sleep with the CD player going. That wasn't the weird part. It was a recording of their parents basically going, Molly, you are wonderful, you are a star, you're going to shine bright. That isn't super weird. But it was like several hours long, and apparently they listened to it every night. Story 3. I was 13 and was babysitting my neighbor's kids. It was my first time. So the parents walked me through all the rules about the bathroom and TV and food and bedtime, etc. Just as the parents were taking off for the night, the mom came back in and whispered to me, "Don't go into the basement." As a teenager in the 80s, my mind went to all of the scariest movies that had basements. I avoided the door to the basement all night, until I had put the kids to bed. Then I walked slowly to the door and put my ear against it. I heard what sounded like whimpering, and then it sounded like sad laughing. I ran to the couch and started watching TV, to get my mind off of it. But then I heard something fall in the basement and knew someone was down there. I really don't know how I got the courage, stupidity to do it. But I went over and opened the door. The whining instantly got louder. I went down just 3 or 4 stairs so I could peek down. And I saw a goat. Not a ghost, a goat. As soon as the goat saw me, he started bleeding loudly. It scared the crap out of me. I went upstairs and the goat was still bleeding loudly, so much that it woke up the kids. The oldest girl came out and said, "Did you open the door to the basement?" I said, "Yeah, why?" She said, "When you do that, Carlos thinks you're going to feed him and he starts yelling." Thank God I knew it was a goat first, because if she had said that before I went down, I would have thought Carlos was some kidnapped person in the basement who would yell for food. It became very funny to me. The mom came home and I told her what happened, and she almost died of laughing. They were repairing the goat pen, and had to keep him in the basement for a few days. I still remember every moment of that night vividly. Story 4. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the family gave me instructions to let their kids drink chocolate milk, which they were otherwise not allowed to have. I think they wanted their kids to associate babysitter time with fun time so the parents could go out more often. Seemed to work out well for them. The kids both grew up to be successful people. Story 5. The mom had me put her kids in their car seats and sit in the driveway with all the car doors open while she just hung out inside the house. 5 hours of me standing in the driveway watching them sit inside their car, never return. Story 6. Hippie family. The 2-year-old had no bedtime and no rules. She can eat what she wants, no bedtime, and if she falls asleep, leave her wherever she crashed. The parents came home at 2:30 to a toddler eating chocolate cake on the couch, with her preferred American pickers on TV. That's fine apparently. 6 months later the mom is very pregnant and asks that when the baby is born, if I could wrangle the toddler while the mom gives birth in a bathtub at home. The 2-year-old was to be in the room watching, while I explain what's happening. I left that evening. When the parents came home, fried chicken in the toddler's hand, keeping up with the Kardashians on TV, and denied their next request to come sit. As a 20-year-old, I wasn't prepared to see the mess of someone else's home birth. Story 7. My first day they sent over an adult male friend of theirs, who asked to come in. I said no and was then told I was being tested and I had passed. This reminds me of the time my dad called our house phone when I was 8 or 9. My parents had gone to the movies and my 15-year-old sister was in charge of watching my brother and I. He called the house and I picked up. And he said in a weird voice, "Hey little girl, is your mommy or daddy home?" And I told him no, they went to the movies. And he said, "Okay. Well, I am a friend of your dad's and he wanted me to drop something off. But I don't have your address, will you give it to me?" And I started to spit our address out like it was nothing. And in the middle of me saying the street we lived on, my dad yelled, "Nitrogen monoxide, that's a Caitlin, nitrogen monoxide. You never ever give out your address to anyone on the phone if you don't know them." He had called to see how things were going, and just figured he'd see what I would do if he pretended to be a stranger, asking where I lived. So anyways, I failed his test but learned a great lesson. Story 8. I used to babysit for this family when I was in high school in the 80s, and they had no books or reading material of any kind, except that there would usually be like 2 sections of the WSJ and a running magazine lying around. No books anyway. Once I went over there and the mom told me like 9 times, begged me not to eat the box of vanilla wafers that was in the cupboard, because she needed them for a recipe the next day. Begged. I was like, okay, got it. They're totally safe because I don't even like vanilla wafers. She kept mentioning it, and it was the first thing she asked me about when they got home. Story 9. I used to regularly babysit one of my younger cousins. At nap time, I had to put her in a zip-up pajama with feet. I then had to duct tape the zipper down and duct tape the wrists in a way that wasn't restricting, but she couldn't pull her hands into her onesie. If I didn't do this, she would pull her hands in and dig in her diaper, always. My aunt got tired of cleaning poop-covered walls regularly. Story 10. One had me feed her 1-year-old only from a freshly opened baby food container. If she only ate 2 or 3 spoonfuls, I was to throw it away, and when she wanted more in 15 minutes, I was to open a new one. I thought it was so she would finish her meal and be full for a while, but she said it was okay to feed her every time she wanted it. I would probably throw away 5 or 6 jars in a 2-hour sitting. They cost more than I usually made for sitting. Story 11. If the kids misbehaved, I was encouraged to spank them with a paddle they had, then make them write their names on it. Another family was perfectly normal until bedtime. Then I had to give the 5-year-old girl a bottle, put her in a diaper, then cuddle with her until she fell asleep. Like I said, everything else about her and the family was normal, but at bedtime I basically had to treat her like an infant. Story 12. Not a rule, as I only went there once, but a very odd request. I used to work housekeeping at a hospital. A doctor that was frequently on the floor that I worked on asked me if I could watch his kids on Saturdays. He had 3 toddlers, ages 2, 3, and 4. His wife didn't work but wanted time to go shopping and get her hair and nails done. I totally understand, as my son was 4. I was also allowed to bring him. I get there early as the doctor is getting ready to leave. He says he's cooking breakfast, and while he gets the kids fed and dressed, could I help change his wife's tampon? She drunk a lot the night before and was completely passed out and was leaking and messing up their sheets. He's a doctor. I told him I should work for someone more than a few minutes before I go rummaging in their private parts, and that I'd tend to the kids if he tended to his wife. What I really wanted to do was leave, but the kids would be home alone with their hungover mother, so I chose to finish cooking and stay. He went upstairs and sent the kids to the kitchen, where I was putting food on plates. After a little while, he popped his head in and said it was a short day, he was done upstairs, and he was leaving. I never met the wife. He came home at noon, gave me $100, and I never spoke to him again. Story 13. Only 2 hours of reading time. To be fair, the mom was a librarian and her 2 kids were adorably nerdy. They had an entire room filled with books, and even then we'd make trips to the library from time to time. The rest of the time was supposed to be outside or doing some activity. It was a super sweet deal too, because she paid for not only her kids to have a pool pass but me as well. So we basically went every day all summer and we would play in the pool. Story 14. When I was about 14, some friends of my parents asked me to babysit their 9 or 10 son who wanted a boy babysitter. When I got to their house, the mom told me that her son loved poached eggs and asked me to make him a poached egg on toast for dinner. She quickly explained to me how to make it as if we're something really simple and easy. Later that night, after wasting half their eggs in a hopeless effort to make a poached egg, I asked the kid if he likes scrambled eggs. He said he loved scrambled eggs and ate them without complaint. When the parents came home, I apologized for using up the eggs. They laughed and seemed to appreciate the effort, although the mom explained it again and insisted that it was really simple. I'm almost 40 now and I still suck at making poached eggs, and it cracks me up that the mom thought a 14-year-old should be able to whip one up, based on a few instructions. On the other hand, as a parent, I appreciate the hell out of that kid. Story 15. I was babysitting a 3-differential girl and a teen-mo boy. The boy had to be carried in a buggy, which is all very well, but I was supposed to add some kind of mini stairs to steps on the back of it, so the girl could stand on it because her legs get tired, said parents, while making quotation marks with their fingers. The damn thing hit my legs every time I took a step. That kid was also taught to not wait and look for restrooms when she needed to go, and proceeded one time to take a shit in a public garden and wipe herself with a leaf with an ease that certified me that wasn't her first time. Story 16. Not babysitter, but my friend was 24, and his parents asked him to watch their house while they were gone. They left a list of rules and instructions. It was on a laminated paper and looked like something for a 10-year-old. He was not allowed to answer the door, and if someone kept knocking, he was to call the cops. Story 17. Babysat for a family that had 3 boys, 1 a newborn. I was never to feed the baby by holding it next to me, but I was to put it on my legs and make eye contact with him at all times, no cuddling. Also, I was never to let the older boys lose any game we were playing. I quit after about a month. Years later, I found out that youngest one, the baby that wasn't to be cuddled, jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. Story 18. The mother asked me to stop by the house to meet her 2-year-old son a week before I was supposed to babysit him for the first time. I pulled up to the house and saw that the young boy was standing at the glass front door with a t-shirt on and nothing else. I go in and I must have given the child a strange look, because the mom started to explain that her son doesn't like to wear pants, so they let him run around pantsless with no diaper on, though he isn't potty trained. I told her that this made me uncomfortable, and asked if I could put pants on him when I was watching him, and she got upset with me and said they don't like to make their 2-year-old son do anything he doesn't like to do, so they let him run around without pants on, which unfortunately means he goes to the bathroom on the floor since he won't wear a diaper, and he isn't potty trained. Story 19. My mom told me a story of when she used to babysit during her teenage years. She did it for this religious family, whose church did not believe in television or their members watching it. She would bring a portable TV with her to watch once the kids were asleep. The parents came home and they were captivated by it. They would invite her over just so they could watch television.